Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our episode 2 of the Pluto podcast. We've on the last week's episode we talked about, I think it was co-creation, we talked about fourth spaces, blue zones. We covered a lot of ground. But yeah, so I guess that leads us today. What are we going to talk about today?
Something I thought we would have planned in advance of being here and sitting down, but I do have a few ideas. I'm curious what you had in mind.
Well, I think naturally, we would go into the origin story of Pluto.
That's exactly what I was thinking of doing as well. When a awesome space in Kensington Market came up for a sublease that I thought we were actually going to do a farm to fork eatery hybrid with like a co-work learning facility in this beautiful spot in Kensington Market in the old For Life shop. And that was a quick oh my God, are we going to do this thing? Had like the lease in front of us, running ahead with this idea. And then it fell flat when the landlord just pulled the deal and pushed it over to someone else. And then that idea was dead in the water. And that was July of 2024. And that just kind of totally fizzled out. I got right back into the consulting work I was doing in the wellness space. So for different wellness brands, conscious companies, just community building. And it was one evening in late October. Actually, the next morning, I was on a plane to see one of my clients' studios in Calgary when, after a pretty cool experience the night before, just got this wave of inspiration that I recognized after my prior experiences here in Toronto from working with Othership and all these other wellness brands, longevity companies, retreat companies, and then communities popping up and all these amazing friends and people that I found myself at the nucleus of. I recognized, oh my God, there's this wave happening in Toronto. There's these incredible brands, incredible companies, services, products, events, facilitators, just amazing people traveling across all of them. And for some reason, there's this missing void of how these people are actually finding themselves in each other's lives. And that's when this wave hit of oh wow, there's this missing web of connection that we absolutely need to create. I had no idea what it was going to look like, but to me it was this is probably some sort of social network or social platform to create the connectivity across these people, these stakeholders, and just make the serendipity of finding each other more real. So chewed on that idea, and one of my favorite things about ideas is it's like that Jungian idea, or even that Rick Rubin talks about with creativity, where it's the ideas land in people when they're ready to receive them. So
channeled. Yeah. Channeled through, yeah.
Exactly, because it was just this mad journaling into a notebook that I was just downloading. So it's that Jungian idea of people don't have ideas, ideas have people.
Can we just quick side quest? Is this partly why you see when certain ideas, say in mathematics, when someone discovers a new formula, and then, apparently in history in another part of the world, it someone else discovers that same formula at the same amount of time. So it sort of follows along. If I'm not mistaken, it's Jungian's collective consciousness. Is that
collective unconscious?
Collective unconscious, yeah.
The way that this has also been alluded to is one night Michael Jackson called his producer Quincy Jones. It was 3 a.m. He's like, dude, we have to get into the studio right now. There's something coming through. Let's get in there right now. No questions asked. And Quincy was like, Michael, it's 3 a.m. Can we just do this tomorrow? He's like, no, it has to happen now. Otherwise, Prince is going to get this. So we have to lock it in. Because what he knew was that this wasn't just Michael getting this transmission for this song. This was something coming down into the vessels that are ready to receive them to transmit. And I was with a friend this weekend, and we were actually talking about this, where a mentor of his shared with him that genius arrives when the spaciousness in the mind is ready. So I know this might sound ridiculous, calling myself a genius and akin to Michael Jackson receiving a download, but
on
that's
the same frequency,
It's what it felt like for me, where it was just a download. And then with a download or with something that's rapturously awesome like that, it was an idea I could not stop thinking about. So this was the end of October, all the way through November, thinking about it. And then as this thing's percolating, you and I started to talk. So I think it was mid-November that you and I got in touch.
Yeah, we got in touch because I'd gone to Man Camp And that summer prior, I'd met Rawa. So Rawa knew my story, like how I started Expeer, my whole cancer journey. And yeah, I guess what you guys, when, I mean, men were coming to you for, dealing with certain health issues. I think if I'm not mistaken, you reached out to the group with Rawa and you said, does anyone know, someone that maybe can help with these? There was like 2 men I remember at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it was in September that we hosted our first man camp.
Yeah. Which is like I would say Canada's largest men's festival.
Yeah. Yeah, it's our, the premier, what we call premier men's experience that we do at Merkaba, our farm. 150 men, giant initiation ceremony, just up-leveling for dudes.
Yeah.
And
up-leveling for dudes. I love
yeah, we can talk about that. It's a bit of a side quest as well, which you had attended.
Yes, that was my first.
After making your return back to Ontario after your life transitions. And yeah, after that festival, it cracks a lot of guys open. And so there were a lot of men reaching out to me just looking for extra support, extra space holding, and I was happy to. I think that was like part of the nobility and the beautiful service that I could find myself in. But these were guys looking for just like coaching or like mentorship and just stuff I felt quite comfortable with, like helping men through their maturation. But then, to your point, there were guys that reached out when they had like end of life concerns or cancer in particular.
Yeah.
And that's when I did reach out to my men's group and said like, hey, like, do you guys know anybody that can actually support with these requests? Because I feel a little bit out of my pay grade to be holding space for men through that. Which is when Rawa said, you should reach out to Graeme.
Yeah.
And at this point, I actually didn't know much about your story at all. But I did reach out to you, being like, hey, man, I know we get to connect at Man Camp, but there are these dudes that are dealing with this, and I was wondering if you'd be open to supporting them.
Yeah.
And without any hesitation, you're like, absolutely happy to send them my way. And that was like such a beautiful start to meeting Graeme Davis, because there was no business. You and I didn't have any real pre-existing relationship. I just got to meet you as someone that cared for others. And that was like a really beautiful way to just encounter someone that, with that much generosity. And then for whatever reason, like you and I just started trading voice notes back and forth.
Yeah.
Like 5 minute, 10-minute long voice notes. And like, for the record, anybody listening, don't send me a voice note over 30 seconds, please. I won't listen to them. Even 2x speed doesn't give me enough. But there's something about Graeme that there was just something clicking. There was some magic in the air that made me want to just keep staying in touch and like having these dialogues. It was like dating. Like, wow, I really want to get to know this guy. He's so interesting.
I'm curious.
And the courting continued. It wasn't even courting. It was just like a cool connection. And then it was in December, I think, that we planned to meet in person, because you told me you were living in Hamilton. You were coming back into the city. It was early January.
Yeah.
That you were going to be coming into Toronto, and that we wanted to meet for a coffee, which we did at Impact Kitchen, our local feeding hole right by here at Pluto. Again, at that point, we got together, we sat down, and we were just shooting the breeze. Like, zero business talk at this point, because at this time too, Pluto was really just an idea.
Yeah, because I didn't even know you were working on it until that conversation.
No, I mean, I was still neck deep in consulting work, and it was, again, just an idea I thought about. It's like putting Notion pages together and really just getting, like starting to take it seriously, like sharing the idea with people more is something that I always recommend people do when starting something new. And then it was probably only the last like 15 minutes of our 2-hour coffee that I was like, by the way, there's this thing I'm working on. And where it had some element of like a social network, some element of like an event ticketing part of it.
Yeah.
And that was when you chimed in and mentioned, and I'll let you speak to your experience in tech and entrepreneurship overall, and in all these like relevant things that
owning a ticketing company for 10 years. I was like, okay, maybe I can help you here. There was that part, and then I remember just like asking really great questions about how to unpack the idea. And I find that pretty rare. I'm kind of stubborn, I guess, but I got asked a lot of questions, and sometimes I'm like, I know this. Like,
but you really dug in and like made me think on layers deeper than I was able to just in my own faculties. And that was like probably like the best ending to the conversation, where it was like, you know what, let's keep chatting. And I also remember finishing it with like, I was about to start customer discovery interviews within the next week, and you'd mentioned like, hey man, are you going to start customer discovery interviews? Because as we both know, that is like the ultimate way to validate an idea when you are working on something new, is talk to people. I really recommend this for anybody, entrepreneurs or anybody that's working on a new project. Don't hoard your ideas. We need to share them. The fear that someone else will take it and run away with it is nonsense.
Yeah.
And so when you asked, like, do you have any interviews lined up? I said, no, do you want to be the first one?
Yeah.
And then we put that in the calendar, and then the next week we got to pick up on the conversation again.
Yeah.
And then we just went deep. It was me asking you a lot of questions, as one should do in a customer discovery, but then you were just kept expanding my mind and my thinking into all these ways that, like, wow, have you thought about this angle? Have you thought about that angle? And just poking holes in all the right ways that like really inspired me as, as like showing me where I need to look that I'm not. So reducing all these ways that I might be naive or just over or under planning for how to take what is an idea into a business.
Right.
And at this point, I was talking to people, was like just working on it solo, sharing the idea around, and looking for other people to, get involved with me, because I knew starting a business is something I didn't want to do on my own. But I guess the truncated version is that we just kept talking more and more, and then eventually it was like, hey man, you offered like, hey, I want have some extra space, if you want, I can come in some sort of like advisory capacity. I like what you're working on. I've got the relevant experience. And then eventually it was just like, got to a point where like, jump on the saddle, like let's get this thing going together.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're still working on an app.
Yep.
In fact, the first like 4.5 months, 5 months, including like finding a developer, doing our own branding, which we should totally pop up like a little shot of what the brand we put together with Canva was.
But maybe if we put a pause on that, I can give you kind of like my background up until that point. The story can go back quite a ways, but what's maybe relevant to Pluto was the work I was doing in retreats. So it'd been several years that I'd been doing these retreats out in Switzerland. I was living in Amsterdam. Doing that work, it really felt in many ways like living in purpose. Like I really felt like, this is something, compared to my previous jobs and career, like this is something that really aligns with what I believe in. It's based on my own experience, and I won't get too far in that today, but just, obviously going through my own cancer experience. That's why, just to connect the dot as to why Adam was sending guys to me, and wanting to take all of that and somehow, transmute it into something that was beneficial and could really support other people going through not necessarily cancer experiences, but just life experiences, challenging life experiences. And so doing this work, I would say, 2022, 2023 into 2024, I was really seeing kind of this, there was like two sides of it. On one side, you're bringing people to the mountain, you're removing them from their daily habits, routines, and so forth. And you got their presence, you have their attention. You get, there's something in that's like, it's so human, I think. This is, when we're not on our devices, when we're not thinking about, our future, when we're not reminiscing on the past, and we really have, full presence. We're learning, we're connecting with others. It would just really create this sort of environment of, where real healing and transformation could happen. And sometimes that was based on the programming. Sometimes that was just based on, a conversation between two people when they were on a walk together. And I really was inspired by that, and really feeling like, wow, why this should be almost every day. Why does it have to be, why do you have to go to a mountain, to a retreat center, pay all this money to have this kind of experience? And so it was around, I would say 2023, where I started thinking about, okay, what could a model look like for this to exist where people probably need it most, where they live. And originally I was thinking like, oh, maybe it would be like a studio idea and it kind of like a feeder for a retreat center. So you'd have something in a city, because I was in Switzerland. I was thinking you'd have something in Zurich, It would operate like a studio, and then that would be the feeder for the retreat center up in a place near Chur, Switzerland, which was like an hour and a half from Zurich. I think it was that time I'd just gotten a whole model on how gyms operate. So a good friend of mine had ran a franchise of gyms in New York and sent me their entire model. It's just said, hey, this is a business model. Maybe you could look at this model. So I took that and started to play with it a bit and came up with something that felt like, okay, like, you know, if this business were to work, like what would be all the different revenue streams? Okay, it'd probably be membership based to some extent. Maybe you'd have things called courses or learning development programs. You know, that's a whole line item. Maybe you'd have, you'd have the retreats, and that would be a whole section. And so it started to like piece together, okay, what could be a business? And I even made like a little pitch deck and like put it all together and sent it to a few friends to take a look, and was like, maybe I could raise some money on this and turn this into a real business. 2024, I had a huge life change. Like at the beginning of 2024, I ended up leaving my relationship ended, which put me on this path of reconsidering if I wanted to stay in Europe or not. For many reasons, I had this call to come back to Canada. It'd been some years since I'd been back, about 6 years since I'd been living in Canada. Needless to say, that 2024 season, it was such a like transitional time in my life, and for the most part, like a very ungrounding time in my life, because I really didn't know where my life was going. I had this retreat thing in Switzerland that was, doing okay, but it wasn't sustained like how I wanted to sustain my living. It wasn't producing enough income. I was moving back to Canada, and just very, coming out of like a long-term relationship, just there's a lot of questions there, that I had to face. So that's when I went to man camp for the first time. That was in 2024. I guess that was the inaugural man camp, but that was my first time stepping into men's work and learning about that. I spent a month in Costa Rica. I'd gone and visited a friend, and it was actually in Costa Rica, Nosara. I was there, for about almost 6 weeks, where I really had that opportunity to reflect, okay, what does my life look like, for this next iteration? Like, what am I saying bye to, or what am I letting go of, and what am I stepping into? And that really became the theme of Costa Rica, so much so that by the end of that trip, I really felt like, as I was kind of in my daily routines and stuff, like it felt like I was embodying that version of, my reality that was coming. And I had this like confidence, like I really think it's actually like not that far away. And within 2 weeks, we sat down for that coffee. And, and then as you kind of caught us up to now mid 2025, I mean, it really felt like, I had put that call out to the universe, and it, gave me back sort of this frequency, or this, embodiment of like, okay, well, that's what that could feel like. And then suddenly things started to line up, and here's Adam Lewis, and like Adam Lewis and his whole like fantastic community in Toronto, as I'm coming back to knowing, like, I mean, I have my old friends, but I haven't seen a lot of them very regularly, so I'm really felt like I was stepping back into Toronto, like building from scratch again. And so I think that like then gets us to the point of like, as you mentioned, like we connect, I see what you're doing, I see how your brain operates, and I feel this like very like strong pull just to like, and I remember the call actually when we were talking, and I was like, Adam, I think, if you're looking for somewhere, you need extra support on this, I have capacity. I remember when I said that and I hung up the phone, and I was like, oh, I didn't have any intention to say that on that call. Like it totally just came out. But like, I think that's just been part and parcel of what this it's symbolic of what this relationship has been, is like just total trust, flow, and surrender. And like, and it's just kind of being, and that's remarkable considering, like you said, we didn't really know each other. Even at that point, like we'd only known each other for a few months, and and so then that gets us kind of to like, mid 2025, and we're still thinking we're doing an app.
Yeah, I mean, great share, man. A lot of what came through there is like just that divine trust, those like those asks, those yeses, that almost like there wasn't necessarily a ton of logic mean, logical retrospectively, but at the time when that ask goes out and the immediate acceptance, it's like a felt yes. And I think that sometimes when
Yeah.
you really are in the pocket, in the way that we were even like tractor beamed into each other's lives, that there's just these currents that we find ourselves in that we can start to follow and surf those waves.
Yeah.
And yeah, that brought us to that point. At this point, I think we had named it Pluto. What was the wellness passport?
Yes. So Pluto, and that was thanks to Mateo,
That's right.
good friend.
Early co-creator, dear friend, who brought through the genius of naming it Pluto. But so at this point, come on board. We're working on Pluto. It's this app, and we find a developer in Brazil to build it on WordPress. So we're working on that, and this was great because I'm like, you know what? I have no experience in tech or building anything app-based, and here's Graeme, this guy that has all this great experience doing it. How perfect. And now we're getting into it, right? We're like sourcing a developer, we're paying him, and like these are the dollars start flying out the door.
Yeah, he wasn't cheap.
And he was not cheap.
Yeah.
And yeah, usually it's like you pay for, peanuts, you get monkeys, and I think we paid up and we still got a monkey. So
Yeah. Well, there's like so many nuances to that. Like, it's funny because I don't think about that time a lot now because we're just so far past it. But going back to those days, and I have to give you a lot of credit because so at the time that we were connecting, I also took a consulting job with Edge City. And Edge City, they're like a pop-up. They do month-long pop-ups all over the world. And it's also a co-creation kind of environment. I started with them in May. And with the Edge City work, I ended up actually not having a lot of time. And so you really stepped up, took that on yourself to like create the Notion pages and do all this work with him. I guess for me, that was the first time that I really saw you like just go all in. And you were just like, even if this isn't my area of expertise, like I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get it done. And which is a very entrepreneurial thing, I think, that not like special people have, to just push that gate down. But the last thing I wanted to say on that point, because just to get back into the story is, and this is, I think, where you really inspired me was because of this like divided energy, if you will, with the Edge of City, with Pluto. I remember us having a conversation in July, as this very important theme of devotion. And devotion can show up in many ways in life. It can show up in relationships, but it can also show up in career. And I think you left it as an invitation, but, the invitation being like, I think you really need to think about this because Pluto, if you're joining Pluto, I need devotion. I need your absolute attention and focus. And I can't have you one foot in Edge City, one foot in Pluto. Like you have to be all in on this. And of course you can still do Experia. And that was actually something I also respected was you were always pro the work I was doing with retreats. You were always like, keep that going. Like, that's amazing. I can't wait to bring that into Pluto, I really appreciate that. You didn't see it as like a competitive at all. But the Edge City, I think it was very clear because it was competing with my energy and time in a different way. And I do think because of that conversation we had and me, it really did land with me and in a big way changed my life of just being like, Adam was fucking right. Like if I'm going to do this, I got to do this. Like Edge City's a nice concept and what it could be, but it's someone else's thing. And I'm helping someone else attain their dream. Whereas what Pluto is, like this is something Adam and I have been like there's like a spiritual attachment here. There's a purpose that we both feel here. And all signs point to Graeme, you got to fucking just go all in on this. Yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That was, I also recall that conversation vividly and it was at Edge City.
Yep. It was at Edge City. Yeah.
In the hotel room I appreciate I remember that whole journey of like learning about it. You were going down, Amir was there. Mm-hmm. And then, I guess you guys teed up that opportunity for me to go down as a speaker to talk about community and regenerative living and got a bit of a cheaper ride down there for the week. And it ended up being quite a catalyst for what Pluto became. In fact, I would say it was the TSN turning point for not just that conversation where it was that moment of like me really, really fascinated with the way that just in that short time that you showed up, even despite having that time split with Edge and Pluto, and even despite me having to roll up my sleeves and learn how to manage a developer, be a product manager. There was still, like you said, that like a strong magnetism to knowing that there's a potent force when we put our minds and our hearts together that felt very aligned. And this was even before Pluto was what it is today.
Yeah.
When it was still this janky app that we were piloting at Edge, very much doing it through the Exper modality, which part of what we were piloting was our one thesis, which was on transformation. And it was based off of, I think that's what you'd obviously learned in your transformational work with Exper, and just in my experience doing a lot of different retreats, therapies, workshops, like just immersing in the transformation world for the past like decade, was that the thesis of the real transformational work doesn't happen in the acute peak experiences that happen over like a weekend, 1 week, 2 weeks, that it does take a more prolonged duration for the nervous system, the mind, all the parts that need to transform to actually take place. So can we have this way of testing group transformational work that would extend beyond just the acute phase? And we got to do a little demo of that, where it was almost like trying that. It was a bit of like a
at Edge City, yeah.
Yeah. We like, and what I love about Edge and why it's been so inspiring, it's that, hey, you have an idea, throw it out there, test it with people, and gather feedback, which I think was also a beautiful demonstration of how we both just know these are things you need to do.
Yeah.
There's no convincing of like, hey man, is this a good idea? We just know like experimentation is such an important part of the startup phase.
Yeah.
And so with no reservation, just like running these experiments, like no matter how bad or good, and like no fear of embarrassment for like running a crappy experiment too. I think we were both just so in that, mad scientist phase of, so we ran those. They weren't like that great.
No,
but they did give us feedback, and those weren't not the TSN turning points, but it was then again, like what I love about Edge City is the way they bring in, which for the record, it's like a pop-up city that they do for a month long, different places across the world. This one in particular was in Esmeralda,
in California.
In California.
Yeah, Sonoma County.
Exactly.
What did you call it? You said it's Burning Man for Stanford.
Burning Man meets Stanford.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where it's a pop-up village, but rather than just parties and like crazy stuff, it's like frontier thinkers in the world of, futurists, crypto, longevity, science, community building, just frontier thinkers and builders from across the world that come and give talks and workshops, salons, and all these other great things to meet great people.
Yeah. Ideation and creation is like really at the heart of it. It's like, how can we make the world a better place, and not just talk about it, but what can we do like in this 30 days to make the world a better place?
Exactly. I think they call themselves a society incubator.
Yeah.
Which is very inspiring, as well as it's, I'd say a lot of that DNA is infused in what we do now.
Yeah.
So the TSN turning point was probably like day 4. We're like into our experiments. We're really gelling. We've had this devotional talk on like, hey dude, are you in or not?
Yeah.
It's like, it's me or Edge City.
Yeah.
Because because you were doing such a great job running their programming that of course they wanted you to stick around for longer. But I was like, I want him to.
It's like, which was good actually. It was yeah. Sorry, as I've already hit that point, but it was the conversation that we needed to have at the right time. You, and so symbolic for you having flown to Edge City because you were going to talk on a panel for Ag Tech, and this was in July. So now we're in July.
June.
This was June.
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Early June, because field trip was July.
It was the whole month of June. That's right. And so it was kind of like that. We'd already been building since March, I think. Yeah. So about 4 months in, and so everything kind of aligned. It was like, okay, this is either, we're zigging or we're zagging, but are we zigging together or are we zagging apart?
Exactly. And so there was like, the hotel room talk on like kind of like a shitter get off the pot thing.
Yeah.
And that landed beautifully. And yeah, that was a pretty profound, like, all right, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
And I know it spanned beyond just, we spoke about the concept, like the frequency of devotion.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're going here, we're stable here. And I still think about it a lot of in a world that's so chaotic, when there's so much uncertainty, where there's moving parts all together, if you can be a energy of consistency, an energy of devotional, linear, this is where we're going, it becomes like the world catches you rather than you trying to catch the world. So it's a very magnetic frequency one can operate from. And I'm very blessed to have experienced how that's unfolded in my life when devoting myself to my partner, with this project, with you, with everything, that it's kind of a cheat code. And so it was great for that to land with you as well. And it was, I think the next day that we sat, here's the TSN turning point, people. We got to sit in a talk on community building with a gentleman by the name of Zhang, who is the chief community architect at Powder Mountain. And for those who don't know about Powder Mountain, it's the ski hill that was bought by the guys that founded the Summit series. And they have a great story about this in their book, Make No Small Plans, which has always been super inspiring to me, and I recommend people read. But the long story short is these guys started this conference series, tremendously successful to this date. They ambitiously bought a mountain in Utah, which I think is
an old ski resort,
super badass. That it did trade hands. I don't think they tried to sustain it for too long until Reed Hastings bought it, Netflix CEO, and then are developing this mountain into this like wildly epic ski resort community for very rich people. And Alex, who's like, I don't even know his prior background, but was giving us this talk on like how do you actually build community.
He was one of the co-founders of Summit, so I think they kept him on to help build. I'm not sure what it's called now. It's not Powder Mountain. Is it? Did they keep Powder Mountain?
I don't
know. Yeah. Okay. So Powder Mountain. Yeah.
So he's unpacking how are they actually doing the community aspect of it, because again, this is where the word community gets thrown around a lot. Where okay, just because we're members at a ski resort, are we actually a community? Or just because we've bought, chalet mansions on a mountain, are we actually a community? And to what he was alluding to and to what we know, it's community actually involves a level of involvement in people with each other.
Involvement and identity.
Exactly. And the analog here really came from that there was a shared identity, which is based off the interests that people had of, hey, we love spending time on the mountains.
Yeah. We love skiing.
We love skiing.
Yeah.
But is that really enough to create the foundation for meaningful relationships and community? And it's not. And so what Alex shared was, despite having these epic places on the mountain, it's like really, I think they have like art fixtures all over the mountain as well. So it's like, it's kind of like making me think of like Mario Kart, but down at a ski hill.
Well, Burning Man for rich ski bunnies.
Sick. Perfect. So you have this like, locale and a residence, and you have a shared activity, but how are you actually getting involved with each other's lives and meeting people? Because meeting people on the mountain doesn't really like happen unless you crash into someone. And that's where he brought up the concept of the landmark clubhouse, which was, I believe it was a chalet that they have on the mountain where there's the restaurant and the sauna and other recreational places.
Yeah, there's couches and a theater, and you can just if you live, because you can use the mountain as like a guest pass or a day pass, but if you actually live on the mountain, only the people who live there get access to this particular building. So it's as you said, the idea is it's a landmark for those who live there, because they're one of us, kind of, and so you're running into people. You might be running into them at the restaurant, or you're running into them at the like little theater, it's the continuity, I guess, of connection.
Exactly, where people, or if not continuity, but that familiarity where that collision opportunity can happen.
Yeah, serendipity,
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I know in that moment when he shared that, I was like, oh wow, like light bulb moment, landmark destination where people can collide more frequently to actually establish the connections.
Yeah. Because
that was one of the things that I was thinking a lot about with why Pluto as a digital format had to exist, was that in my prior experience, working at Othership or working with these other communities where there's still so much happenstance as to when I might encounter someone again. And then even if I met someone at the same, business or experience over and over again, the relationship really didn't go that much deeper because there was no greater context around why we were meeting. If I met someone in, the same restaurant at the same time, or like saw someone at Impact Kitchen each day, like every Friday for lunch, because we had both had that routine, there would never actually be anything going deeper. Or at the same yoga studio for every class, it just becomes a familiar face, but no real connection. And that's when this idea of having multiple different contexts for how people meet to form the different connections. So back to Edge City, we're both sitting in this talk. We're hearing about Alex talk about the landmark clubhouse, landmark destination. This is how you make people on a mountain actually come into contact.
Yeah, you need your pillar.
You need your pillar.
People congregate, right? And that physical space is almost as important, if not more important, than what the digital space, I guess.
Exactly. And I remember leaving that talk, and we went to one of the landmark places in Esmeralda where Edge City was held at the town square.
Yeah.
And we sat down on the bench.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I think we need a physical clubhouse.
And we were resistant to it for a while because we were just like, well, that's going to be rent. And that's because it wasn't the first time we thought of this idea. We had this conversation, and I just remember like us kind of doing the mental math on it, being like, like renovating and furnishing and all the things. But yeah, in that moment we were like, holy shit, not only do we have to do this, like once we kind of committed to the thought and the idea of doing it, suddenly like this snowball effect happened where it just was like everything started to make sense.
Right.
The co-creation of events. Now we had a space they could happen in, like,
right.
The curation. Now there's a space, like everything just started to like fit together like puzzle pieces.
Yeah. And I remember probably a night or two prior that we did our whole whiteboard session on what the member journey looks like for how someone joins Pluto on the digital world. And we would then rent a hall for them to go through this onboarding, teaching them the principles and then how to co-create. And then this whole rigmarole was like just insanely complex. And I remember one of the biggest questions was, how much would someone actually pay for this app?
Yeah.
Like people pay like $20 for Netflix. Are we even coming close to competing with that level of value?
Yeah.
And then I remember just trying to do the math of like, oh man, like $20 a month. How many people do you need subscribing to this? Even at 80, which is an insanely high monthly subscription for anything.
Considering how much operationally it was going to take out of us, right? Because like if we're manually onboarding people, and we're renting halls and like, it was just like, okay, it was really hard to make all the math work, in that model.
Yeah, like the idea of like the distributed fourth space marketplace where we need to have venue partners where if someone wanted to host a talk or a workshop for the members, they would still have to rent it. And then we were like, maybe we subsidize it, but then we don't make any money. It was like the toughest thing to chew on. I can't like actually believe how much time we spent just still just figuring out the idea. But then, like you said, all of the questions went away when it was just, oh man, here's where we can host consistent onboardings, consistent events that can just be offered to the members.
Yeah. Having co-working even, because we weren't thinking about or we were thinking like, oh, you could distribute co-working in like people's living rooms and stuff.
Yeah, because I had a few co-working sessions with friends like Sid actually would just come over and like we're all working at home. Why don't we just do it together sometimes? And the idea on the app was like, I don't need to host an event, but maybe during the day I'll just put my like flag up being like, hey, who wants to co-work? And then people could sign up. And because there was the pre-vetting of the members, it made it less weird to have a stranger come over and co-work. Which in hindsight now I'm like, that'd actually be kind of weird. But when it's close friends like Sid or like other homies that would come by, it's like,
I don't know. Maybe with Sid it would have been a bit weird too. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the day. And that was also like, many instances and like through the spring and summer too, that like I was just having a lot of like events and like gatherings at my home that made like this seem so practical that I was like busting out of my living room and like just doing things with friends, having a crew.
Yeah.
We're doing cool things all the time. That was like, I could really see how this was something that needed more spaciousness and like I want other people to experience as well. And so back to when we had this like, epiphany of like, oh man, physical space. The other big question that got answered was, oh, you can actually charge for a physical space.
Membership fees can be a lot more interesting from a business standpoint because it has to work, right?
It has to work. And the other big thing that for any aspiring brick and mortar entrepreneurs or just anybody building a business now, it's the risk and the reward too.
Yeah.
With an app we're paying $200 a month on server fees, developer here and there. But at any point, you can just be like, you know what, fuck this. Pardon my French. It's not working. I'm out. Whereas, as you get into talking about brick and mortar with the physical space commercially, you get locked into a lease.
Long-term lease.
If
you have commitment issues,
yeah,
that's going to get triggered.
And that's where the devotion really gets handed up. Yeah. We still haven't found the building yet. And this is one of my favorite parts of the story to tell, so we have this, it's really landed, like, wow.
We're doing it.
Pluto is going to be a physical clubhouse.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other ball game of like where to look, how to find one, what to do. But I flew home back from California to Toronto. You stuck around because you had to finish your work there for another 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. But one of the last conversations I think we had while we were together, it was probably the last night, we were talking a lot about magic, but not the like cheap tricks magic, like, magic as in like historically, magic with a K. What has that, what's the tradition of it, from the Cabal to, esotericism all the way through to like modern day, with the Freemasons and so on and so forth. And so that was kind of how it was just a interesting like last conversation we had just to like dive into it.
Yeah, which again, at that point, I didn't even know if like you were in the esotericism and the metaphysical.
Yeah.
It's just, again, one of those things just came through. Like, I'm like, oh, I guess we're both into this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of like tailed off our trip together. I made my way home, and I think the next day, or like maybe the day after, of course, we jump on a phone, check in, and I remember sitting at my apartment here in Corktown and having that call and finishing it, talking about magic.
Yeah.
And just how deeply we wanted magic to be a part of Pluto.
Yeah.
That it's important to us as individuals, but it's important to what we want to infuse into what Pluto will become.
Yeah.
And finishing that call has been like, cool, like we're both into magic. We're locking it in. And
putting it out there,
Putting it out there.
In the true magician's way.
Exactly. As the magician does. And I step out of my apartment, stone's throw away from where we're sitting right now. And Chelsea and I decided to go for a walk. It was a beautiful June afternoon. And we normally walk up and down River Street, like maybe to Corktown Commons or up to Riverdale. But this day we decided to shoot down Wascana, the side street, and over to Sumach. First time ever walking that way. And we lived there for like almost a year, maybe at that point.
That's so funny. Yeah. Never walked down the street.
Didn't bother. I don't know why. And walked down Sumach. As we're walking down just past, I look over, and what do I see? It's this cool building with this painting on it and the title, The Magic Building. And I look over at Chelsea, and I'm like, babe, that's crazy. Graeme and I were just talking about magic and how important it is for the DNA of Pluto. And so I walk over, I get a photo taken of me in front of the Magic Building, and I send it to you.
Yeah.
And as I'm standing by the door there, I look over and see where the current Pluto sign is hanging was a sign that said "For lease." Call Kevin Duffy.
Yeah. Like, good old Kevin.
Good old Kevin. I said, hot dog. This is weird.
Yeah.
And I look in, it's a cool unit, and
we actually, in fact, when we looked at the Magic Building, we were almost appalled by it.
Yeah. When we went inside.
Yeah, when we went inside, and the HVAC was on the ground. It was like dust everywhere. There was wires all over one of the walls. It's an old warehouse looking building. And I remember we were just like, oh, this is a money pit. Like, let's try to find something more turnkey, more plug and play. We had that place in the Distillery District, much, much smaller, but I mean, we wouldn't have had to put a cent into it. It was good to go. And so when we were talking with our broker, and we sent kind of to the Magic Building, like our big long list of, here's all of the things that we would need, and we even added some things. I think we added, like, we want another washroom, and in that washroom, we want a shower, which is like kind of random, but we threw it out there. And, and them coming back and just being like, okay, and not only are we going to do that, but we could probably turn this around for you in like 6 to 8 weeks.
That's right.
Yeah. So there was some magic even in that, right? Like it just felt so frictionless,
It did.
you
It
know?
did. And especially when, again, like I know we saw a handful of other places. This one did take a bit of like convincing to get that decision that we wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was still prior to the knowledge of knowing it. You can't just like start a business and grab physical space in a commercial building. You often need a covenant or need to put like a considerable amount of money down or a
Yeah.
considerable amount of investment
They want to see that, yeah, you like, yeah, if
that you can
shit
pay
hits the, yeah,
rent.
yeah, you can pay rent. That's all they want to know.
Yeah, because they don't want to go into all the effort of getting a new tenant, and especially as a startup where it's like they run out of money, and then it's. I get it, and I think we got very fortunate that the building's owned by some private owners.
Yeah.
We had a pretty compelling vision and business deck that
Mm-hmm.
it was also cool to hear that they've been pitched for like almost a year, maybe plus. Yoga studios, restaurants, nightclubs, gyms, all these other ideas that were run by them. But for some reason, what we shared about Pluto actually landed and made them want to take a bet on us.
Yeah, it was the creativity that we were kind of putting forth, right? Like this was going to be a space used by creators.
Exactly.
And Magic Building traditionally, I guess, since the original owner had purchased it, I think in the late 70s, early 80s, had always been in some form of or another a creative hub.
Exactly.
In the early days, more of a recording studio, and like they bring artists in,
Photography studio, voice recording,
yeah,
film casting.
yeah. And I even remember, I think it was Kevin or someone mentioning that they even leased one of the houses across the street, and artists would stay there.
That's right.
As they were doing whatever here in the Magic Building. So there was already this like sort of creative history here, and then us, I think, coming in with this like new, more modern idea of like what that could look like, in a time where like, yeah, a lot of the studios and stuff, like people are doing a lot of that at home now, right? You don't need a big 3,500 square foot floor anymore. Like you can buy that equipment and do this in your house. So the whole industry's changed, right? With modern technology and so forth. And so it was, yeah, in a weird kind of, synergetic way, it's like, this is where the Magic Building was, and, Pluto's kind of part of where it's going.
Exactly. It felt like this renaissance almost of continuing the party going of like a home for creative energy.
Yeah.
How creation comes through, not just through the traditional arts that they did it, but how so much of what Pluto is here to enable creative energy and the way that people bring their ideas through.
Yeah. And so like stewardship, which is one of our values, really rings true with like even how us as Pluto, as founders of Pluto, how we think about the Magic Building. Like there is this sense of stewardship that we're coming into, and like, there's a responsibility there. Like, clearly there was an intention and ethos that was set for this building long ago, and can we continue that tradition, in a very clean way?
That's right. Yeah. And that was, so I think it was pretty soon after we saw it. We saw the other buildings, but then it was like pretty clear, like, let's get the pricing on this one. Let's get the bid in. And there's still a bit of like limbo on like, are we going to get it or not?
Yeah.
I remember just how anxious being like, we want this. Will we get it? The risk is there. And then even still, once like the papers are in, the negotiating's done. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of poker, especially I think as just new guys getting into the brick and mortar space.
Yeah.
On what does a good lease look like?
Well, and as you said too, we were a startup, so they had to also trust us that we're not going to go out of business in a year, because we couldn't show like year-long bank statements. Like we couldn't show anything. We had nothing.
just charm.
Just charm. Great personalities.
Yeah, but then eventually we had what sounded like pretty verbal and like strong confirmation, and at this time too, quite a deadline, because also coinciding with the launch of Pluto, where there was going to be a digital or a physical space, was the launch party that we were planning with Daybreak or another ship called Field Ship that happened July 7th.
Hell yeah.
So not too long after you got back, and this is, months in planning already, regardless of what the form or shape that Pluto is going to take. But the way that we wanted to announce it to the world and share it was through a celebration, a co-created party with some of the best communities in Toronto, like what I said about the Stacked crew from at Stacked Market where the party was held, with alma mater othership, the daybreaker people who I got to throw a party with othership back when I worked there. And it felt like a really big full circle as well to then, for the first time, scrambling to get that thing together, which was also just bananas. But
Yeah, because you were responsible for that event, even though Othership was involved, Daybreaker was involved. Like these are massive. Daybreaker is a massive brand, but Othership for Toronto is like a massive company, and brand in the wellness space. And yet everything did fall on you.
Yes.
And we're just a startup.
Correct. Yeah, money out of my pocket, paying for sound systems, like.
Yeah.
But again, there's that just all-in energy, the big risks. Maybe that I've got a higher tolerance for than what's healthy, but that much belief in these missions that I'll put my full weight behind it, and that enthusiasm, that energy, it is quite contagious. And we ended up having just this massively epic day that was filled with dance and celebration. The foreplay gang brought the DJ and the music, and the party was just awesome. We had cold plunges, families, amazing food vendors, like a real epic alcohol-free celebration that really did capture the energy of Pluto.
Yeah, and the best part was because you were, the person that made this happen was you got the final word.
Yes.
At this event. You got to say the closing remarks, which was like such a beautiful and I remember coach Adam, you got this, man. And you're like, dude, I got this. Don't even worry. And you had it, man. You really gave a very heartfelt, pitch, probably for the first time to the public that, I'm doing Pluto. This is what it means to me. This is what I believe in. And this is why I think Pluto is going to make the world a better place. And, and then that was the beginning of our pre-sales, Founding 100.
That's right. That's when we opened the pre-sales. Fresh Instagram page up, landing page to receive them, and then that's it. It was like, it's out in the world now.
Yeah.
And what a potent, energetic container to seed something with.
Yeah.
And, I could talk on ends about just how important I think it is to have that, the energetic foundation of when you put something out in the world.
Yeah.
Where I think if you put something out with a lot of meekness or uncertainty, the world feels it. Whereas we had put so much into this thing at this point that, of course, it was just easy for it to flow through me with that much conviction. Because, I knew, man, we were putting the weight of our entirety behind this.
Yeah.
We had amazing people working with us on it at this point, and the reception was, above and beyond what we could have asked for. And, I even remember going back to my place afterwards and after partying with a bunch of friends, and, so many of those people became early members too. And even think about Siki right now, who's we were friends, but not that close, but she was there and I was telling her about it. And now she's an absolute staple. And so many of the people there are. And yeah, that was the founding vibration that we put out.
Yeah.
And so that was, early July.
That was early July. And then we had 3 months. So that was July. We opened mid-October or second week.
We got the keys October 1st.
Keys October 1st.
I remember signing the lease to really take the building, going to Burning Man.
Right.
So it's late August.
Yeah, yeah.
Which again, the turnaround I'm realizing is insane to go from looking for a place and finding it in June.
I think you actually had to sign in the RV.
That's right.
Your part. So while you were at Burning Man, you had to find Wi-Fi and send your signature back to me.
Find a Rogue Starlink.
Yeah.
Sign it and send it off. So it was first saw the Magic Building in June. Started negotiating through July, August. Finally get to terms after negotiating, the duration, price per square footage, what's included, what's not included.
Meanwhile, we're already selling pre-sales.
Yes.
So we already have 10, 20, 30 people putting down pre-order credit cards down, pre-ordering.
Yes.
So under the assumption we're going to find a building.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure.
And eventually, getting the date, maybe mid-September, maybe October 1st. And for whatever reason, we were in this huge rush to get the place.
Well, it was because Dream Camp was Tomorrow Today was going to do their Dream Camp reunion. And they had asked if they could do beginning of October. And we said yes, but then because we said yes, we wanted, you know, and we didn't know we were going to get the building. We were just like, we think we can get the building, but clearly they need to advertise. They need like 3 months to get out to their community. So once they started to actually market it, it kind of instilled it in us like, oh fuck, like we got to be true to our word now. Like the last thing we want to do is open Pluto with like out of integrity or not being in integrity, you know, like how counter, you know, like
They needed a venue, and we said, hey, I think we got one. Can't make any promises that it's definitely going to be open October 4th, but we'll do our best.
Yeah.
And that was the burn the boats.
Yeah, that was
energy.
our broker was gonna kill me, man, because she was like, we would just be like, they had like construction has to get done. She's like, I'm talking to them like every day, but like Carmen, you don't understand. Like they have to finish. They have to finish. We need the keys October 1st. She's like, why the hell did you guys do this? Like this was so unprofessional of you. We're like, it doesn't matter. Like it has to be done by October 1st.
Burn the boats, man.
Burn the boats. Yeah, we really did burn the boats on that.
Yeah, I gotta credit to Robbie Bent, who really taught me that things can always move faster than you think they will if you put enough pressure on it.
Yeah,
and that was an instance where I know it was like pressure on the broker, pressure on the builders. We had Manolia going in even when she showed to take
designer.
Measurements.
Yeah,
it was.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She's sneaking in with construction workers to like size. Yeah, because she needed to order like all of her stuff. Yeah.
Because in this process, while we knew we were getting the space, but we couldn't go in, we were still scouring Marketplace to find tables and chairs and the entire decor.
Yeah.
So that as soon as we got the place, we could go and just take everything in.
Yeah.
So bought stuff, put it in storage lockers, but just borrowing storage space from the guys at Motorista to haul items in that we couldn't keep at our own place, but people needed them sold from Marketplace. It was insane.
Yeah.
But it's what allowed us that at October 1st, like, yep, we're done the construction.
Yep.
Here are the keys.
Yeah.
Got the cleaner in, got the place set up.
Yeah.
Had it ready in 3 days. And this is like staying overnight.
Yep.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And then come October 4th, we're ready to invite the Dream Camping crew in for the party. And
like 75 people or something. It wasn't
75 people.
It wasn't
at this point, we had the canopy set up.
Yeah.
The couches. The tea room was not built yet. But the sound system was in.
Yep.
Top priority.
Noir got it done.
Yeah. I think the projector at this point as well. And yeah, we didn't have any proper lighting, so we just had rope lights around the perimeter.
Oh yeah,
so
Andrew brought some.
Very janky
today.
lighting set up.
Yeah.
But it did allow us to, within 4 days, have our first event.
Yeah,
75 people in the space. And then what was hilarious too, having to immediately tear down after because we had to paint the whole place
The next day.
Yeah. So it was like this outrageously exhaustive, set the whole place up, run this event, shut her down, paint the place again up over
drywall. Well, we drywalled first. We had to do it was a shit show.
Finish furnishing, drywalling. The painting was insane too.
Yeah.
Painting the ceilings and the walls and just doing a full teardown that's set up again because we were in this sprint to actually open it to the members. To 50, 60, I think it was about 64 people that had actually pre-sold memberships to at this point. Because
we were doing the first onboarding, if I'm not mistaken, on October 14th. That for some reason
11th.
That number, the 11th.
Yeah,
October 11th. Okay, so we had our first onboarding scheduled for the 11th. So it was we knew once people were onboarded, Pluto's open,
and that's when we can start making money.
And that was also part of the pressure. We are not collecting a paycheck for how many months at this point. We know expenses are hitting the bank account. Money had to start hitting the bank.
Yeah, we had October as the furnishing month. So
yeah.
In real estate and commercial, they'll often give you I think you get much more favorable deals. That was what I've gathered now. But we were given 1 month of grace to do the furnishing, the setup, and get the place to an operating place.
Yeah.
But there was that urgency to get it open earlier and sooner because that's the faster we can start activating the founding members, building the business, and actually welcoming people in. Yeah. Because we knew that there was going to be a big fat check flying out our checking account the month later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the pressure is real, and this is, for those that don't know, it's totally bootstrapped. So it's not like we had all kinds of funding to float us through the months. We needed to be at least in the black out of day one, essentially.
Well, that was very much our mantra from early days. We always said we want to be a revenue first business. We want this business to be at the very bare minimum, like sustainable, like as soon as possible. Not like a cash, like we didn't want it to bleed us and be so reliant on funding where like, profitability was going to be months and months and months and months in the future. Like we really, really, really pushed for not necessarily profitability from day one, but sustainability from day one. And I think we actually did it for the most part. Like, yeah, and that's one thing we can pat ourselves on the back for is we set that goal and we achieved it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
which was pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. So that takes us to, I guess, early October. And at this point, we're open. And we're still figuring out what the business really looks and feels like. We're doing these large group onboardings. But that is what essentially brought us from, the idea to you and I meeting. I think there's a whole other conversation on the people that have been involved helping us get there.
Absolutely.
That we should do another episode on. But maybe this is a good place to put the cap on what went from 0 to 1 for getting this idea. That was just an idea into the digital space, into the physical space, and then all the action that's happened between that happened in between there with the great people involved, the many pivots, the many trials, and it's by no means been a straight line.
No.
But it got us to the point where we opened a physical space called Pluto at 60 Sumach in the Magic Building.
On October 11th.
That's right.
Well, I guess that's it for today, and next week we'll figure out something else to talk about.
There's endless things that are already coming to mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. And big thanks to Sid. Appreciate you.
Thanks, bro.